we ended up shattering the record. I think the record was in the 700,000s, and we crossed that million mark. And it was interesting to see Fwiz, who's the head of gaming at YouTube, tweet out that he's the only two creators that have broken 1 million concurrents are now MrBeast and El Rubius. What's up, everyone? We are back with episode 5 of Creator Economics. I am fresh off the plane from getting back from Creator Games 2. If you didn't watch MrBeast's Creator Games 2, what the hell were you doing on Saturday night? Because we had over 1 million concurrents watching. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, get Blake's perspective, who's also joining me, my co-host. So yeah, fresh off the plane, long weekend, something that we had been looking forward to for a while. Want to get Blake's perspective on it. And, Blake, I was saying this to you earlier, I only got our perspective in the studio. I actually don't know what the creator said. I haven't went back and watched the video. So I should probably do that, but would love to get your perspective on Creator Games and would love to answer some of your questions. And then I can talk a little bit about some of the controversy that happened with the D'Amelios, and happy to talk through that as well.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be back. I can't believe it's episode 5 already. That seems crazy to me. I literally can't believe it's been that long.
It's
already.
Flying by. And yeah, we do have, we're recording our first guest episode in 2 days. It's probably not who most people would suspect. I think we're going a little bit out in right field on this one, but it's a hot topic, something that you and I think both want to talk about, something that, the internet is constantly talking about. So excited to film that in a few days. But first, let's talk Creator Games. So question I have for you right off the bat, and I said this earlier, I only saw my perspective. So from a viewer standpoint, how was the show?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, I sat there like from the moment it started till the moment it ended. I mean, it's super enjoyable. It's actually the coolest part for me is you don't typically see all these creators like interacting with each other, and so putting these people against each other and like, I don't know, sort of forcing the conversation, and whether it's like through trivia or rock, paper, and scissors before, I just think it's a really interesting dynamic. And like you're introducing like these different worlds or universes, like Dream playing with, I don't know, like the D'Amelios or whatever, ZHC playing against the D'Amelios. Like it's just interesting to see those worlds collide. And I think like MrBeast is one of the few that can actually enable that. So it was really entertaining to watch. And I haven't watched like the trimmed down version. There's a trimmed down version now, but I watched like the full thing live, and I thought it was awesome. I mean, I think they did an incredible job.
Yeah, we cut it down to, I believe it's like 28 minutes. So the 3-hour live stream is no longer available, but I need to watch the cut up. I think most everything is in there. We just kind of eliminate a lot of the like spots in between each questions and things like that. So just to back up a little bit, and you said that, watching creators compete against each other is fascinating. Jimmy had this idea a couple years ago. And the question that we kind of asked ourselves, and the question he asked himself, was why hasn't there been a creator on YouTube that has engaged the entire community and pulled different creators together to compete? And so it started with a circle video at the Cloud House where we had, I believe, 6 to 7 people last to stop standing. One, I think it was 25,000. That could be a total guess. That was kind of the first version of, hey, let's get the creator community together. The next version was the Battle Royale Airsoft competition that was played in the rain, super muddy environment, a lot of gamers. That was like the second stage, and everyone had so much fun. And so we just, kind of asked ourselves, like, what's the next step to this? Jimmy had a lot of ideas that he wanted to execute on, and this was actually going to be in a stadium. That was the goal. We wanted to do this live, and COVID happened. And we had to pivot a little bit. And so we ended up with Creator Games 1, which was mostly rock, paper, scissors. And now we did Creator Games 2, which was trivia. So you watch both. What were your thoughts from us going with like a consistent game of rock, paper, scissors to now transitioning into like a multi-trivia mixed with other stupid questions like how many TikToks is in this bathtub kind of thing? What were your thoughts on us kind of switching up the games?
I thought it was really interesting, and I think some of the questions were really fun. Like I think trivia just works for this because I think it's fun for the people and like the viewers to try and guess and be like, how did this person not know that answer? Like I think when you watch it back, there's definitely some parts that were like memed of like, how did a creator not possibly know this? And I think trivia is great for that. I'm curious for you, as you as you guys were thinking through even just setting this all up, how did what were the learnings from rock paper scissors, and then how did you apply that to then deciding to do trivia here?
Yeah, so one thing we did look at was there was a little dip over the course of the whole live stream in viewers. We obviously Tfue, leaked Jimmy's number, and we got DDoSed and everything else. But aside from that, the overall game, we actually saw a little decline in viewership over the course of the 2.5 hours. So we wanted we wanted this one to feel fresh, right? So people didn't feel like we were playing the same game over and over and over. I think after Jimmy and I watched the cut down, we feel like it was, it's very repetitive. I mean, it's the same game, really. And so the thinking was for the next one, how do we keep it so each round is completely different from the other, and the creators have no idea what to expect? They could be spelling a word like Gangnam Style, which Mark Rober, my goodness, I don't even know where to start on that one. Ooh, to counting jelly beans in a jar, to guessing cake or not cake. And so for us, that was one big thing. We wanted to hold an audience throughout the entirety of the stream. We ended up peaking at a little over 1 million. And then we held about 850 to 875 the entire stream, which was a goal of ours, is how do we hold viewership and it was over 3 hours. So that was one reason that we pivoted. Not to say that we won't go back to some version of rock, paper, scissors in the future if we do this in a stadium. But that's why we kind of pivoted to a different multi-game structure.
Yeah. And I know it sounds like you guys broke some viewership records, but how does the viewership for this one compare to the rock, paper, scissors one? I forget what the peak was for that one.
It peaked around 700, I believe 710,000 right before we got hacked and the stream crashed. Who knows what we would have honestly got to had that not happened, but it did crash about 20 minutes into the stream. So we had 20 minutes to climb up to 700,000, where this one only took us, I think it was 20 minutes to get over 1 million. So I'm not 100% on the exact number, but it was close to 1.052 million concurrent viewers, which is a record. That is the biggest YouTube original live stream ever, bigger than David Blaine, bigger than Will Smith's bungee jump. So that was something that we wanted to break, and we ended up shattering the record. I think the record was in the 700,000s, and we crossed that million mark. And it was interesting to see Fwiz, who's the head of gaming at YouTube, tweet out that he's the only two creators that have broken 1 million concurrents are now MrBeast and El Rubius. So pretty good to be in that. Yeah. So
yeah,
crazy.
There's one element of the stream, or of the creator games, where they voted someone back in, and I think Dream ended up getting the vote in. The crazy thing for that was there was a poll in chat, and I don't know if you even saw this, but the engagement on that poll, I believe at the time, I don't know, let's say it was 850,000 people watching the stream. You could see in the poll, it was 550,000 or 600,000 votes, which is just insane. The fact that of the 800,000 people that are watching, that many people are actually care enough to vote Dream back in, or vote their favorite creator back in. And that to me was probably the best signal that it was a big success. Is it was so good that people are in care and they're going and voting. And that was just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, so the stats on that, I think we had 520,000 views, or 520,000 votes over the course of about 3 minutes. Yeah. You can only vote once. This wasn't a situation where you could vote multiple times. And Dream had 41% of those 520,000. That he has such an amazing engaged audience. They are just the biggest stands I've ever seen in my entire life. But we knew it. We're okay, if Dream gets eliminated and there's a poll, he's going to win that poll. We were pretty confident in that. So not a shocker. But yeah, crazy that we had. I wish we could have used that poll mechanic a little bit more. That was really the only part of the show that we got to use that, though. I wish we could have done a ask the audience. Now thinking about it, say there's a question A, B, C, D, and a creator could poll the audience and then see if the audience was right. I think in the next one, that'd be something cool to look at.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And maybe just taking a step back, what actually went into planning all this? I mean, obviously we're talking about how it was this massive success, but I don't think people realize like how much work and how many people behind the scenes there are working, and like how much time did it actually take to coordinate, plan? Like, how did you decide who was going to be in it? All of that stuff, just from like a pure logistics side, I think would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's actually quite complex. And the first one was just as difficult. First time doing it, having to deal with 32 different POVs plus Jimmy's 3 POVs, and having to switch those pretty periodically. And then also the randomness of Jimmy being like, "Hey, cut to Chandler. Hey, throw a frog on the screen. Put like money on the screen." And so having like a team in the back end actually being able to do that. But this had been something that we'd been planning for the last 3 months. We'd known about Creator Games 2 for a while, since midsummer, because of the success of the first one. And so we had a large production team. We ended up using a company named Fly on the Wall, who actually did the first one as well. And they had a few people on location. Obviously, there's rules that we had to abide by because of COVID, so we couldn't have their whole team out there, but we did have a few. And then we had a lot of people in a control room, either in Los Angeles or in New York, which helped with. And this is one thing that people don't think about as well. You have to do individual tech checks for each of those influencers just to make sure their mic works, their camera works. One thing I didn't think about is that if they have something on the wall, like I have all this stuff back here, and you have stuff on the back of your wall, if you don't own that, you got to remove it, right? And so we had a lot of issues with like people having things in the background that they didn't have rights to put in the show. And so we had to have a team check on clearances and remove all that. And then we also had to have a large team actually drafting questions and then fact checking those questions. This was a 3-month process to get this show together. Everyone worked in unison, and thank goodness it went off without a hitch. I think my biggest, the one thing that I was probably fearful about was us getting hacked, and that ended up not happening, thank goodness, after the first one. But yeah, I think people underestimate the amount of people that actually have to work behind the scenes, and thanks to YouTube Originals, they were so helpful in this entire process and getting some of the creators to sign on and helping with legal clearances and things like that. So big W's all around.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, like, what does that even mean to be like a YouTube original? And like, does that mean you guys struck a deal with YouTube to help put this on? Were they technically the sponsor of this, like the Creator Games? What does that actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it like a sponsor. It's YouTube's. It's a internal team inside of YouTube or inside of Google that is responsible for larger productions. They like to lean towards creators, but they've done things like Cobra Kai that I'm sure people have watched on YouTube Originals, that I think is on another streaming service now, all the way down to documentaries. They did a NSYNC Backstreet Boys documentary, a few other really awesome documentaries that you guys should go check out. But we struck a deal with them. They also did the first one. They signed on for the second one. So they paid for most of the production and the prize pool and all that. And so again, thanks to YouTube Originals for getting involved, and hopefully we can figure out some more things to do with them. We're currently in talks for a few more projects that we can't technically announce or talk about yet, that will be on the same scale, if not bigger. Actually, one of these is way bigger than anything I think any creator has ever done, but that's kind of become Jimmy's MO. So we'll see. But yeah, YouTube Originals has been great. And if you're a larger creator out there, I'm sure you've spoken with them. And if you haven't, you should definitely get connected.
Yeah, no, and I think that makes a lot of sense. As far as, I guess, it's like, if you had to put a number on how much it cost, or if you can share, or like, and how many people actually were like behind the scenes, like, I think it'd just be interesting to know that, like, depending on what you can share.
Yeah, I probably can't share the cost, just because there is some non-disclosures and things like that in place. But people behind the scene, easily 40, I would say, scaling up to 60. If you include Night Media plus Fly on the Wall plus YouTube Originals plus MrBeast's internal production crew, we easily had 50 people working on this, just to get this one live stream done. So the scale of this project, and that's not. And we didn't have a lot of people in studio. We had 3 sets. We had some of your 100 Thieves boys. We had Courage and Nadeshot come out, and Courage was amazing, as always. And Nadeshot, I think, has a career in broadcast or play-by-play or whatever he wants to go into. After all this 100 Thieves stuff is over, he definitely has a career. He is actually very, very good, and was very entertaining during the show. And so we had 3 sets. and then we had a school set with Chris and Carl. And honestly, the team that was at the studio was probably only 10 because of what was going on and COVID regulation, but easily 30 people behind the scenes that weren't physically there.
Wow. I mean, that's insane. I mean, I think it's super easy to be watching and just being like, oh, it's just like this group of people, and like there isn't a bunch of people working to put it all together. But I think even just the idea of coordinating all of those like live streams or like getting all these people to broadcast whatever, I don't know what software you guys were using, but I have to imagine that in itself is a difficult task. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I think people continue to underestimate how much work goes into these things, and so yeah, I just think it's super interesting.
What was, so like I said before, I didn't get to see both perspectives, right? What was your like highlighted 1v1, right? Creator versus creator highlighted matchup. I know you talked a little bit about Laserbeam. I have no idea what he said. All I got was what Nadeshot was saying to him. So what were the highlights to you?
Oh man, I think Laserbeam was just hilarious. Like I knew of Laserbeam and have watched a couple of his videos, but I think his personality really showed through on the stream. And I mean, he was making jokes about like not going to school and dropping out, and that was the banter. Is like Nadeshot was like stay in school, and Laserbeam's like, if I win, then like can we get Nadeshot to admit that people shouldn't go to stay in school? And I think overall though, like I was super impressed with like D'Amelio's. I was like, wow, that's crazy. I wasn't expecting to make it that far. And also like even just the idea that like I think it's super cool that all these creators allocated, I don't know, it was probably 3 hours, 4 hours worth of time, depending on if they were before or after. Like and I just thought that was awesome that like so many of these creators were down to do that and devote 3 or 4 hours on their Saturday to do it. And so I it's hard to say a specific moment, but I think overall I think Laserbeam was like the one who stole the show from me. I was just like, this guy's hilarious. Like I need to go and watch more of his content. And that's like, that was one other cool aspect of it, is I got exposure to like new creators that I maybe wouldn't have watched otherwise or like been as familiar with. And obviously they were already massive. So like I think I don't even know who the smallest creator was on there, but like all of them were already massive, but it definitely inspired me to like search a lot of those people up because like, wow, that seems like they have a great personality.
Yeah, I wouldn't, there definitely wasn't a small creator. I'm trying to think who was the smallest in terms of subs. It would have had to have been someone that has like already 2 million. But everyone that we had is insane. I don't know how many creators we actually had that over 10 million subs, but I'm guessing it was over 15 easily. Which is crazy to think about because 5 years ago it was awesome to have 1 million subscribers. Now like that threshold's 10. So the goal line has moved quite a bit to what is a big creator now. And now Jimmy is just moving it further and further and further as we cross into 50 million. So one thing that I did want to talk about, and you said the D'Amelios and you were shocked that, they made it as far as they did. And you got to see the games. I didn't get to see the games play out. I just got to see the outrage on social media after the event. And then some of the conversations that I had to have, and then obviously Jimmy tweeting. So what was your perspective sitting at home? Obviously, we had a few people that had more than one. I can talk about why we had that. But what was like your perspective? Because they met each other, right? Matt, Pat, and Steph played against the D'Amelios. And I would arguably say that Matt and Steph, to me, were the favorites outside of Mark Rober, who completely whiffed on Gangnam Style. But Matt and Steph were definitely the favorites in the show.
Yeah, and for the people who like maybe didn't watch, the controversy was around pretty much the format was trivia, and it was for the most part 1v1, where it's like one creator versus another. There were several groups that like Matt, Pat, and Steph, and Yes Theory that had 2 people with them, and then D'Amelios actually had the entire family, so it was the 4 of them. And so there was a controversy around like, is this is it actually a real win if they had 4 people working together on the trivia questions? I personally like that didn't even really like, I don't know, that didn't phase me at all. I was just like, okay, like it's still really difficult to answer these questions, and I guess technically you can say there's an advantage if you have 4 people there. But for the most part, it seemed like Dixie was like really carrying it anyways, and they even admitted it. Like they're like, Dixie's answering almost all of these. Like actually the one part that really stuck out to me was when Dixie like they asked the pi question. I don't know if you were able to see
Yeah.
that, but like Dixie wrote down like 6 digits of pi, and I was like, okay, like she just carried this like single handedly, and so
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't think it was as controversial from my perspective, but I'd love for like from your perspective, like,
Yeah.
do you think it was unfair? Do you think it was controversial that they won?
Yeah. So Jimmy and I wanted the D'Amelio family involved, right? They do mostly everything as a family. And so we thought that dynamic in the creator games would be awesome for people to see. Just like Matt, Pat, and Steph, and Yes Theory, we probably could have brought a few other people in, with a few other creators, but we didn't go that deep into it, right? It wasn't like we had a lot of thought behind this. But I will say the D'Amelios did play against everyone that had an extra person, right? I believe they beat Yes Theory. And then they went on to beat Matt and Steph at one of the questions, like you had originally said, was she did, I believe, 12 digits of pi. She deserves to win just on that alone. 12
Yeah,
digits. She beat Matt on
yeah,
digits
yeah,
of
yeah,
pi.
which is
And then
crazy.
she also beat him on guessing how many jelly beans were in that jar. And Jimmy gave, I believe he gave the dimensions of the jar to Matt. And so we thought, like, we're like, oh, this is like such a given for him. Like, he's going to be able to calculate how many are in this jar. And she got that question over him. And then at the end, like, we just thought it was fair to do a 1v1. We're like, listen, they've made it this far. They beat out who we thought were the favorites. And now let's do Dixie versus ZHC for the championship, 1v1 for who gets to win. And she killed it. Now, Zach did guess that there was 80,000 popes, which was a little bit of a miss. But Dixie and the family wholeheartedly deserve to win. If you can guess 12 digits of pi and beat Matt Pat at that question, you deserve to win the creator games.
I completely agree. I didn't like the 1v1 at the end should have like, solved all of that. And there shouldn't have been any
Yeah.
controversy after that, right? Like the pizza question, the Pope question, like she won like fair and square. And to me, like I didn't even see the controversy. Like I think the controversy really just rose because people were just like upset that their favorite creator didn't win, right? Like once Dream is out, it's like okay,
Yeah.
like it's like oh no, like they only won because they have 4 people, but I just don't think that's the truth. Like they did a great job, and yeah, I mean I thought it was awesome, like what they were able to do.
Yeah, and people also need to remember this money's going back to subscribers, right? Like they're not pocketing any of this cash. So let's end up seeing like what they do and what maybe they give it to a charity, maybe they give it back to their fans in some different trivia way. Like I don't know what they're gonna do yet. If it was a cash prize going to the winner we are actually paying out, maybe Jimmy and I would have paid more attention. But this was all for fun. This was for the subscribers. This wasn't for them. And again, and I'll say this, as many times as I have to, like Dixie answering that pie question, like that family deserved to win. So I understand why people think it's unfair because there is 4 people sitting on a couch. But the creators that they went up against and beat and the questions that they had to answer to win, and then the 1v1 against DHC at the end, that should be it. End of discussion. And I'm happy for them, and I can't wait to see what they do with the money.
Yeah, I think Dixie mentioned that they were going to use it on their family channel actually, to give back. Which like I think she mentioned that on stream, and so I think that would be awesome. And again, like it's
Yeah.
going back to the fans at the end of the day, and so like there shouldn't even be a controversy to begin with. So and I don't think any of the creators were upset. Like and those are the people that should matter. I mean, you pretty much saw everyone that was within the creator
Mm-hmm.
games tweeting out and saying like, what? We don't care. Like, like that wasn't at all the reason why we lost. Like, it's because we didn't know the answer on our own. And so, yeah, I don't see any controversy around it. I think they won fair and square. Do you like? So you hinted towards doing this in the future. Uh, like, what do you think you'll change in the future if you're like doing another creator games? I'm assuming there will be a creator games 3 at some point. Like, what do you think were the major takeaways from this one as far as like what you guys will change in the future? Will you do a shorter? Will you bring in new people? How do you even think about all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a chance to digest it fully yet. I think one thing that we hit that we'll do in the third one, if there is ever a third one, is we will do less creators. I think 32 became a little long at the beginning for the first round, even though to me the first round probably carried on a little longer than it should have, but it was great content. Like everyone wanted to see more of the creators that were playing. Instead of Addison Ray answering one question, getting kicked out, it was best of 3. So I'm also glad we did that. I think, more fan engagement is something that I need to work on with YouTube Originals, of how do we get the fans more engaged instead of just one single pull at the end to bring someone back in. I think having Courage and Nade Shot added a really cool dynamic to the internal Beast crew to like have those guys there. And Jack is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
He's amazing.
And so having him there was awesome. Having, him and Jimmy on the podium. And then, like I said, Nate Shot. So I think some version of that will happen again, whether it's Matt or Jack or 2 other people, we'll figure that out. I would love to do this in a stadium. I don't know if that's even feasible within the next 6 to 8 months. I don't know what's going to happen. So I would say if we do it again, probably won't be in a stadium, probably be digitally again. We have to figure out what the game is. I really like trivia, but I do think that there might be a little pivot in the overall game. But like I said, we haven't really digested it yet. I'm fresh off the plane. We celebrated that night. We were happy about 1 million concurrents. I think we'll get together and have a meeting as an entire team after I can also watch the show and figure that out.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to do one for fans too. Just bring in like 20 fans and do trivia. Like basically run it back and because I think one of the things I've always loved about like Jimmy or MrBeast content is like he's essentially a game show host in a lot of ways, and the creator games is like one angle of that. But it's so interesting to think about how you can apply what you've done there to other areas, and whether it's giving back to fans and doing it. But I think there's amazing potential all around all of it. And it's just awesome that you guys do it, because again, like you're bringing so many people together that otherwise like are just on their own corners of YouTube.
Yeah, I think like now thinking about fan engagement, one thing that would have been really interesting is for every question, I know we did that poll in the chat. If we were able to do a lot of the questions for the fans, and then they would have 10 seconds as well as the creators to answer that question, and it was like cake or not cake, right? And then we could have the fans all vote and see if the fans were right as opposed to the creators. I think that's something that we have to think about a little bit, is how do we keep people fully engaged throughout a 2 to 3 hour show? Because I do think trivia it's so fun to watch. We had a lot of questions we didn't even get to. That I was really hoping would pop up. But by the end of the show, Jimmy was just kind of picking at random. I don't even know. Was there a Pokemon? We had a lot of Pokemon questions. I think Dream got the only one, and this is sad to say, but he only thought there was 39 species of Pokemon, which still hurts. But we had a lot of like guess this Pokemon that we never got to. So a lot of good questions just didn't even get played.
Yeah, I think it's there's so much potential around the trivia format. So I'm curious to see what you guys do moving forward, because I do think there's a ton of potential around that. And even like from a fan perspective of, like you write them as one of the contestants, like where it's like they're playing, like one person plays against them and it's like the fans are just like voting on what the answer is. And like they choose. Like I just think there's fun stuff to do from that side. And like if they win, then someone random in chat gets, money or something. But yeah, I think there's so much potential around all of that.
Couldn't agree more. I would have loved to see the fans' guesses on the Tic Tacs. There was actually 1 million Tic Tacs. For those of you who don't believe so, I saw the massive bag of Tic Tacs come in on a pallet, and it did fill up a hot tub. So there was, in fact, 1 million Tic Tacs in that hot tub. So for those fans that are like, no, there wasn't, yes, there definitely was. And they are now everywhere in the studio, because when Carl got out of this thing, he had a hoodie on and they were in his pockets. And so now there's Tic Tacs everywhere. So someone's going to have to figure that out and clean that up. But yeah, some type of fan engagement. I think that's definitely a route that YouTube is going to want to take.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, Creator Games was Creative Games 2 was a massive success. I think it's now, I'm always staying tuned as to like what Jimmy and his crew are doing, and I always know you guys are up to something else. So I'm really excited to see what comes next. And again, like he's the one creator in my mind, with maybe the exception of like PewDiePie, who can bring together a lot of these creators, especially ones that are all from very different parts of YouTube and just social media. And so I'm excited to, like, that he's using his reach in that way, because again, like there's very few people that can run something like this.
Yeah, and we tried to get content genres all inside of creator games. Like we even pulled one of the biggest ASMR artists, GB, back into the creator games this year. For those of you who don't know what ASMR is, I believe they talked about it at the beginning of the show. I remember Jimmy saying something about ASMR as I was like eating pizza over to the side. So, you know, it's like pulling in those different content types and creators that people may not know. And I'm sure you probably had no idea. You're like, oh, who's GB, right? And then you search it and you're like, wow, this is actually incredibly satisfying to watch. So that's also one cool thing about the creator games that I've been excited about is pulling in these creators that people may not know. And it gives people a chance to not only like see them in this environment, but then it also lets them like go check out that channel as well. And so, yeah, that's also been something, you know, for us that we've had a lot of fun with.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think it was just a massive success, and being able to discover new people like that is great. Like I really had no idea who some of those people were, but you look them up and you're like, oh my gosh, they have like 10 million subscribers, and they have clearly done super well. And I think that's sort of like my favorite part about YouTube is you like discover these creators and you're like, wow, like who knew that there was that many people that watch this type of content? And then it's like, oh yeah, this makes a ton of sense. And then you end up getting hooked. And so like I now watched like 20 different laser beam videos since like since Saturday. Just like I've went down a rabbit hole, and like I'm watching like Roblox videos, and I didn't even know like I liked watching Roblox videos. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like laser beam is great, and he's just so entertaining. So that's like a perfect example of and I hope that happens for a lot of other people that watch it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, guys, I want to talk about this a little bit. I know this is like fresh in my mind. Creator Games just happened a few days ago. This is Creator Economics. Thanks for listening once again. Episode 5. We will have a guest on the next episode, filming in a couple days. We're excited. He will not be in office. Blake lives in a different city than I do. We'll figure that out eventually, where we can get in the same studio. Maybe it's when we fly out to LA. And do one of the 100 Thieves folks or someone like that. But we will have a guest on the next show. I'm not going to tell you who that is. But
can you give any hints?
Man, I feel like do you have a hint? Do you have a hint in mind? I feel like if I give a hint, I'm going to completely give it away. Like we did state a few things within this show that pertain to that guest. So maybe people can decipher that. This is so like outside of like our probably element that I don't know if people will be able to figure that out, but
there's something in your background that might hint towards it. That's all I'll say.
It's actually gone. Now it's no longer.
Never mind. Okay.
No longer. I will talk about why those are no longer in the background of my video on the next episode. Okay. So there is a reason that they are no longer, or that thing is no longer behind me. But please tune in for the next one, guys. If you have any more questions about Creator Games, feel free to message in the comments below and leave a like. And thanks again for listening.
Yeah, thank you.